You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the animated series episode, The Ambergris Element. Ambergris? Ambergris?
Ambergris.
Ambergris? Sure. I kind of lean toward the French, but, it's probably not. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel is Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom. Father Tyler is away on an away mission.
Yes, he is. He's I was trying to think of a fun one that we could a mission that we could send him on, but I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. He went to Klingon. He's to evangelize the Klingons. But he'll be back. So in the meantime, folks, be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Trek in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or watch us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where when you do so, make sure to hit the bell to get notifications, and of course, subscribe, because that way you get the bell for the notifications. All right. So this is the Ambergris Element, and Jimmy, could you give us a recap of what happens in this episode?
This week, the Enterprise visits a water planet whose land masses were sunk by earthquakes. They're doing this to figure out how to help another planet that will soon have the same thing happen. When the shuttle they take down to the planet's water surface is attacked by a tentacled sea dragon called a sursnake, some crewmen are beamed up, but Kirk and Spock are left on the planet. When they're found 2 whole days later, they have been transformed into water breathers, and this change was clearly caused by intelligent beings. Unwilling to spend the rest of their lives in an aquarium, the two go back down to search for whoever did this to them in hopes of finding a cure. They meet a race called the Aquans who have a generation gap. The younger Aquans made them water breathers to save their lives, but the older Aquans see all air breathers as enemies. There are plot complications, but one of the Aquans helps Kirk and Spock go to an ancient sunken city that may have the knowledge they need. It turns out that the cure for being turned into a water breather involves the venom of the sursnake sea dragon. Some younger Aquans help Kirk and Spock capture one to get the venom, and Kirk must undergo a risky reversion of the process. But he and Spock are returned to being air breathers. Afterward, the Enterprise helps redirect an earthquake to let the Aquan civilization survive, and it's further announced that the younger Aquans will begin reverting into being air breathers. The end.
So what'd you think of this one, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It does involve some tropes that are a little over common in the animated series, like Kirk and Spock get put on trial again, which seems to happen way too frequently in the animated series.
Yeah.
Also, the science is completely implausible. Having a turn someone into a water breather process that's going to work on an alien race you've never seen before is very improbable. But that's par for the course on Star Trek, so I can overlook that.
Yeah. I thought it was kind of silly. I think probably the main motivation for this story is in live action, we could never do this much underwater. So let's do stuff we couldn't do in live action as animation. And
I'm all in favor of that. And having Kirk and Spock turned into water breathers and stuff, all that's good. That's fine. That's why I enjoy this episode.
Yeah. It did introduce for people who like us, for like me, who like ship stuff, is it introduced 2 new vessels. The Aqua Shuttle, which I, when I was a kid, thought was the coolest. A transmedium vessel, actually, which would be, and
it's got the first observables.
Right, exactly. And the first armed shuttle, it had phasers to shoot the sursnake with. And also the rather cool little boat that they drove around on the surface of the water with. Yeah,
their motorboat is fine, but I find the Aqua Shuttle to be ridiculous because if you've got a shuttle that can fly through space, it can fly through water. It's got to be airtight to like at least 2 atmospheres for space anyway. So,
right,
it can go underwater.
And in fact, when we just did Star Trek Into Darkness, and they put the whole Enterprise underwater, like it's not an issue. Yeah. There's this whole point though with it too, where they're on the surface, the shuttle is on the top of the water, and they're being chased by the surf snake, and instead of just flying away because it's a space shuttle, they just drive around on the surface of the water until the creature gets them. Like,
yeah,
that was the kind of the thing where I thought, like, this is kind of silly. Like, this is where we're going to ignore the obvious things in order to move the plot along where we want it to go. Yeah,
the Aqua Shuttle, in addition to being here because this is a water-based episode, the Aqua Shuttle also plays a plot role because apparently the Aqua Shuttles are new, and so they don't have but one of them. And so when their Aqua Shuttle is smashed, they don't have any way of exploring below the surface of the water. And so Kirk and Spock have to go down and do the exploring themselves. Right. And I'm like, no, just use a regular shuttle. And what, your sensors don't work through water? Right. But I do credit them with a couple of things. One of them is they point out that Kirk and Spock are going to be out of communication while they're underwater. And okay, at least based on our current technology, that's realistic because water blocks electromagnetic waves, except for extremely long frequency or ELF waves. And so, which won't carry much information. That's because of their frequency is so long, you can't encode much information into them. And so if their communicators work on electromagnetic signals, then that's realistic. Water would block those. And so that's nice. That's why submarines use ELF waves to communicate, and they have to like encode tiny amounts of information, like a couple of characters in it. Like they might send the string XR, and that's it. And it'll take minutes or hours for a submarine to just receive XR, and then they decode that, and it tells the submarine what to do. Usually it's rise to the surface and deploy an antenna to the surface so we can send you a real message. And they have these extremely long antenna arrays that they drag behind them to capture those very long frequencies. Yeah, it's fascinating. But in Star Trek, they communicate across vast distances, and I mean, I get it. I mean, I up on the ship they've got subspace, and so that's clearly not working the way normal radio works. But I assume their communicators work like normal radios or cell phones. I mean, this has been the thing in Star Trek all along: is the technology works to the level that the plot requires it to work, and that's usually. There's not a ton of consistency across those things. The other thing I want to give them credit for, and this is something I wish they would do in the TV shows, but they've never done, and the live action TV shows, but they've never done it. And that's have force field belts. So like at various points, we see Mr. Scott in the water, and he doesn't need a diving suit because he's got a force field belt on. And that prevents them from needing to create whole new bunches of animation on this very limited animation budget they've got. They just put a glow around Scotty to show you he's wearing a force field belt. And then later, when they're in the aquarium on the Enterprise, which is just a little room, McCoy and Chapel are wearing force field belts. And so I like the force field belt concept in order to visualize it for live action. You wouldn't just put an outline around someone. You'd need to have the force field covering them completely. So you'd put a glow effect over their whole body. Right. But I'd like to see that on regular screens. Stargate did that in a couple different ways, whether it was for the Goa'uld, where they had force fields to protect them from being shot. But there was an episode in Stargate Atlantis where Rodney accidentally activated one. And they had fun with it because it turns out you can't eat. He couldn't turn it off. And he couldn't eat or drink anything while he had it on. And it was a lot of fun, actually, that episode. So what we have is a planet undergoing a transformation. That's what the idea is. These earthquakes are causing this planet to undergo this thing, and over the centuries or millennia, it caused the land masses to submerge and the waters to rise. It basically became Kevin Costner's Waterworld. I want to know how that works because if it. if you have sunken land masses, it's gonna do weird things with the water table, and it's like, won't that just cause other land masses to poke up through the surface?
Right. Unless it's like a hollow planet and these things are just contracting. Yeah. I don't know.
I would suppose. I mean, one way to fix it would be they had big polar caps.
Yeah,
and they melted.
Yes, that would be that's what the water world did. Mm-hmm. What their premise was. So you mentioned the Enterprise searches not for 2 days, for 5 days they were missing, and
I only caught 2.
Yeah, there's a log that Scotty does at the beginning where he says they've been missing for almost 5 days.
Which is ridiculous. They've told us previously their sensors could detect a match on the surface of a planet.
Right. If they're gone for 5 days, that means they've been eaten or the bottom of the ocean and they're dead. Like they're and you're not just going to drive around in a little boat looking for them for 5 days and find them. So that was a stretch.
The motivations of the Aquans are also bizarre because they put them up on the surface like in a net, and it's like, why are you doing that?
Well, the net one was when they were punishing them.
Right. Well, later it was, they were doing something with them, but it was some kind of punishment, but they just put them up on the surface in a net. And are you trying to kill them? Why are you putting them on the surface if they can't breathe air anymore?
I think at that point later on, they were like the council was trying to kill them, was punishing them by death. But even in the beginning, when the young Aquans, the more progressive Aquans, shall we say, transformed Kirk and Spock, why did they leave them again? Like they didn't put them in a net, but they did leave them on the surface. It's like that's not where they need to be.
They're just floating in shallow water. Yeah, and it's obviously the non-diegetic reason is it so the crew can find them, but right. But still, there's no plausible motive for that.
Right. So, once Kirk and Spock...
And they wiped their memory to prevent their return, they said.
Right. Like, what was... Like, why didn't you just, shove them onto a rock on the surface and just leave them there? Like, why...
Why turn them into water breathers if you don't want them to come back?
Right. Well, that was the thing that kind of got me. I was like, well, what would they... Why would they do this? Like... It seems like to lack motivation, like it's just basic plot motivation for why this happened. So, anyway, when Kirk and Spock wake up and they're in the aquarium on board the Enterprise, I mean, Kirk is like, I can't live like this. I can't command the Enterprise from inside this aquarium.
So no cetacean ops on this version of the Enterprise, I guess. Not
yet. Not until they go back and search for whales. They have to either live in the aquarium or stay on Argo, or I don't know, go back to Earth and live in the oceans there. Would have been an option, I suppose. And then the third choice is to find whoever did this and make them undo it, which is of course, what they decide to do. And they find this advanced civilization at the bottom of the sea.
Well, I don't think they're advanced, but they find this civilization. Yeah, I guess their medicine is advanced since they can turn you into a water breather, even if you're not a member of their species.
Right. Yeah, that's the kind of thing, there's sort of a civilization in decay where they have, they used to be this amazingly advanced civilization, apparently, and then when they got submerged and converted, it's sort of like post-Roman Empire Europe, the sort of thing, where they're living off of the advances that they've lost, basically.
Yeah. One thing about the Aquans is even though they talk about this generation gap, there's no way visually to tell a young Aquan for an old Aquan. I like the way the Aquans look. I mean, they're humanoid, but they're green and they have scales and they have, webbed hands and feet, and they've got this long hair that looks like it's seaweed. Right. Or something. And they look nice, but they don't visually distinguish the young Aquans from the old Aquans. It's not like the old Aquans have gray seaweed or anything.
Wasn't there a 1970 show starring Patrick Duffy? Now,
The Man from Atlantis.
The Man from Atlantis. That's right. Because that was sort of around this time. I think after this. But I was kind of wondering if there was inspiration of this or not in that, but it just kind of occurred to me. The Man from Atlantis. I remember that. It wasn't on very long. I liked it.
No, it wasn't. And it turned out he wasn't from Atlantis after all. He was an alien.
Interesting.
I remember watching that when it was on. It kind of was in spots. It started like a TV movie, and then it became a series, and ended up as like TV movies again or something.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of those. There was a lot of those 70s, like this guy is like a Manimal, or it's like 70s and 80s Manimal, like these semi superhero shows. Yeah.
Lucan was another one of those.
Where he was a wolf man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
And there was the Phoenix, starring what's his name, who was Khan's number 2 in the Wrath of Khan. Joachim, no, not Joachim Phoenix. Somebody else.
But it was Joaquin. In the character's name was Joaquin.
Yeah, that's why I'm confusing it, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I met him at a Star Trek convention.
Oh,
he was very bemused. He was because he did not know what was going on at this. Why all these people were doing at the Star Trek convention?
Yeah, he was on a lot of things. He was also on Babylon 5.
Oh,
in the first season, he was a sinister government agent.
That's right. He was. That's interesting. So, wrapping up here.
Oh, and of course, the show was called The Phoenix, so that's why I want to call him Joaquin Phoenix.
Well,
his character's name was Benu.
Okay. So we have the classic, they tried to introduce this classic idea of the conflict between the youth and elders, which is, right out of the late 60s, early 70s, that the conflict.
Judson Scott is his name.
Okay, good. That's good. We should recognize him. Well, speaking of people, actors, James Doohan did like 7 of the characters in this episode.
I think it's 6 in this, but he does do 7 in another one, and they don't all sound the same. He was good at doing different voices.
He really was. And Majel Barrett does 4. So, I mean, she's the between the two of them in the animated series, they did most of the voices of the
guest stars,
the Alien of the Week, that sort of thing.
Yeah. With Majel Barrett, though, her voice is much more recognizable. It's hard to, even though she's doing multiple Aquan women, it's hard to tell them apart. It is.
So, yeah, there's suspicion of the air breathers. That's the other conflict we have, young and old, and then people who live above the surface. There's apparently was some sort of conflict with air breathers, like the people from Argo who didn't convert.
Right. And they say that later on, that when the continent started sinking, some inhabitants of the planet took the procedure to become water breathers, and then the remaining air breathers attacked them. But it then leads to an irrational prejudice against air breathers. Like, we're not even from your planet, and why would we be hostile to you?
Right. Well, they didn't even believe they were from space. Like, they didn't, because there's the ocean and then everything above it. So they've lost so much. So they find the ancient Roman city of the Aquans. It looks very ancient Roman.
I love how as they're swimming towards this gaping doorway that has no door in it, it's just a huge, enormous doorway. Spock says, "I believe this is an entrance panel, Captain." And it's like, well, duh.
Thanks for pointing out the obvious here, Spock.
Yeah.
Look, it's the floor.
Yeah. I believe this is a ceiling, Captain.
It's good. Not much to do this week, Spock?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of lines.
And then they go in, and to show the audience that this is where you find the medical scrolls, they've got a caduceus there.
I know, Aquan caduceus.
Spock even points it out. It's like, this is an ancient medical symbol. I'm going, yeah, it is on Earth.
It must be universal. Every civilization. So, and the information is on these scrolls, or they look like scrolls, but it's
no, they are scrolls. McCoy later has them unrolled.
Oh, right. So we put our advanced technology information on scrolls, even though it's a civilization capable of mutating genes, but that's okay. Now the whole name of this episode, the Ambergris Element, like, we don't get to why it's called that until the very end, which is. The ambergris is, well, could you explain what ambergris is? Do you know?
Well, it's derived from whales here on Earth, and the And they tell us that there's early in the episode after Kirk and Spock have been transformed, they tell us that there's some strange element in their blood. There's some strange substance in their blood. And at the end of the episode, they tell us it's a lot like ambergris.
Right. So it's not actually ambergris, but it's so like the sur snake, which is sort of their equivalent of a whale creature, sort of.
It's like a big red whale with tentacles.
Yeah, but more snaky than yeah. It's like a giant salamander, really. That's what I thought it kind of looked like, the spots on it and stuff like that. But in any case, that's the stuff that they had been injected with, and so, then they in the end. They get converted back, and we have this moment where, Kirk, if we go too far, it will be irreversible. And so we have this, moment of tension where we know Kirk is not going to be.
I do like it where Kirk is all of a sudden covered with scales. It looks creepy. The reason for that is and this is interesting. So the scrolls are damaged. So McCoy doesn't have all the information he needs. And one of the pieces of information he doesn't have is how much do you give someone? As if that would be the same across all races. Right. So he's just guessing what the dosage is, and he's already lowered the dosage. And he gives it to Kirk first. But and Kirk collapses and gets scaly for a minute. And the idea is if we give you too much, it'll mutate you further and the changes will be permanent. And I don't know how he would know that, but I guess the scroll said so or something. But I can kind of buy that because biology is messy. And sometimes if you give the wrong dosage, it provokes a different reaction.
Yeah. What's the saying? The difference between poison and medicine is dosage.
Oh, yeah, the dose is the poison.
Yeah. So
thank you, Paracelsus.
So in the end, as you mentioned, there's this big earthquake that's going to destroy the Aquan City, and the Enterprise is somehow able to redirect the epicenter of it to a polar region from wherever the Aquans are, and no damage is done. But it does cause the ancient Aquan City to rise above the surface again, and that's the thing that prompts the young people to decide we want to try to live on the surface. Yeah,
we can get away from these oldsters now and go party on the surface.
In the slimy, destroyed buildings that have been underwater for thousands of years or however long it's been. And so we have our happy resolution to the plot. Anything else to say about this one, Jimmy?
Let me take a look. I don't think so. They also say that that their experience in this episode showed them how to redirect earthquakes for the other planet that's going to experience this.
Yeah.
I'm going, really? It seemed like you just knew how to do this. Right. They also, the writers don't understand the difference between an antidote and an antitoxin, because they refer to the cure as an antitoxin. And that would imply that the initial transformation was a toxin that was introduced. And it wasn't a toxin, it was a mutagen.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you get the fuzzy language, imprecise language.
But they're Hollywood writers, they're not scientists.
Writing on an animated show.
Yeah.
So cut them some slack. All right. So that'll do it. That's about the runtime of the animated episode. So that I kind of measure these things out. If we do it about the same amount of runtime, we're doing good. So I think that should do it for our discussion of the Ambergris Element. And before we go, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Barbara G., Kimberly W., Frank R., Mary Jean C., and Toby T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of the Ambergris Element? Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or watch us on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia and leave a comment there. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the Next Generation episode, The Vengeance Factor. And Father will be back from his away team mission. So until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thanks, Tom, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest, and remember, it is quite possible, Captain, that they find us grotesque and ugly.